Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of the Rehearsal Season 2, Episode 5, Washington. Now, this is actually the shortest episode of the season, only being 30 minutes long, but the good news is that the finale next week is actually an hour. So, with this episode, it did feel almost too short to me, where it felt like it was missing a little bit of meat in here, that it almost felt like just a full on bridge episode. It was still very good for a show like this because it's always good because it's Nathan Fielder, but it definitely felt like it was just like a little break in the action in a lot of ways. But I'll point out things I really liked about it too, as well. You see that Nathan is rehearsing now this congressional hearing he wants to get with the aviation committee, and he's rehearsing it with John. And it's funny in the beginning that John keeps correcting him and how he's saying things so direct, and he wants him to say it more in aviation speak because he's very passionate, Nathan, and emotional about this subject, but he has to play also a little bit of the ball game of Congress. Now you see he used the connections at Warner Brothers to get to the right people, and they first try to get him time with Congressman Graves. I love they have these actors playing these congressmen, and the one who plays Graves at one point is just not taking Nathan seriously, and one points out he's known for his pranks. And this is the fight Nathan's had all season of getting out of just being looked at as the clown and taken seriously. But he practices by showing a video of the pilot Colin from last episode and showing the process of how he was given a script and now he goes for what he wants. But I love how he reflects during this how it's not that strong of a video because he only goes for a kiss on the cheek, not even the mouth. And I love at one point that John even says how Nathan invested his own time and money. And Nathan quickly corrects him and says, not my money, network money. So, what does Nathan do, though, to get past this feeling of not being taken seriously for this hearing? He watches other comedians who have done what he has done and spoke in front of Congress. You see, they all started with humor to get it out of the way so they'd be taken seriously after the joke. So, my favorite part of the episode is when he tells a joke, and his joke being the last time I had to answer to a transportation authorities when I got caught masturbating on the bus. But in my defense, the driver did keep telling me to get off, and no one laughs from the actors at this, but I was dying. But then he directs them to play it human, and of course they all go over the top now and all do so much fake laughter. So that was one of the funniest moments of the episode in general. But he is rejected by the Congressman Graves for time, and he believes that this happened because he believes he was Googled beforehand, and he sees all these things of Nathan being jokey. But he tries to find something serious about him online and runs into the articles about how the rehearsal spoke to people with autism. He found a group that was taking him seriously. They found this rehearsal show a rare representation of how they felt, even though this wasn't his intent. So, Warner Brothers has a connection to another congressman, Steve Cohen, who also happens to be not only an aviation but an autism advocate. So Nathan says, I wasn't an aviation authority, but maybe by mistake, I was known as an autism authority. So Nathan's got his bright idea that he's going to talk now to a doctor who's an expert in autism and get on the board for autism so he can get a meeting with this congressman who's part of aviation and autism, but autism is going to be the thing that gets him through the door. So when he meets with this doctor, she's saying how the show spoke to people because they practice things that would be socially difficult for them. This is what she does with the autistic children. And then Nathan, of course, keeps making it a universal thing, the things she brings up that autistic people struggle with. So the butt of the joke here, Nathan being that he's not seeing that he might be autistic. He's in complete denial about that. That's the whole visual joke of this whole sequence. And to the point where he starts taking autism tests and failing them. Even though that second question was really hard, I got that one wrong where the guy's eyes I thought looked terrified too. So I was with Nathan on that one. But Nathan got them both wrong. But you see, Nathan calls himself a thought leader, possibly, he says to her, and he's showing her intentions here and that he wants to be put even higher up and be part of the board for autism. So he shows her the airport and the pilot rehearsals they're doing, and she shares how this would actually be an amazing tool for the kids because they're afraid to go into airports. It's a tougher situation, it's very loud. So he's like, well, I did make a commitment not to use kids this season. And I was someone who wasn't crazy about how he handled that kid last season. So I'm happy he brought that up and she talks about it and kind of tries to show an argument of the other side of it that maybe he made a healthy attachment with that kid anyway that was earned. But Nathan, of course, goes through with it. He lets the kids use the set. And I love he calls it Nathan's airport but he actually gets on the board for autism now, and he's able to get a meeting with Congressman Cohen because of this. But that's what kind of where Congressman Cohen gets confused because he quickly switches it from autism to aviation and really hones in on the connection there. So I think that definitely shocked Congressman Cohen that he went so into aviation. But you see, Nathan's like, I didn't want to rehearse this. He says, I like to do it, but it's not essential. I can function just fine without rehearsing. Meanwhile, it's showing Nathan having to take out his notes and clearly struggling in the beginning. So he probably did need a rehearsal or two. And you see even the writing where he's like, people with autism sometimes struggle with interaction. He's telling this to the congressman as he is struggling with interaction. And he talks about masking and autism. And this is the big connection because that is what these co-pilots are doing is masking. They're avoiding expressing things because they don't want to rock the boat socially. And he brings up that non-autistic people who know autistic people are autistic, that gets the autistic person to open up more. Then they could feel like they could take off the mask and be themselves. So he wants to do that with the pilots. So he shows a solution he found in his test and uses that theory, Howard Collin, about having them act and giving them characters. So he has the pilots in the room, which he says they don't do anything, has them each get a character in a scene. And one is First Officer Blunt. He loves speaking up, not afraid to take over controls if necessary. And then Captain All Ears, and he loves feedback and not afraid to admit if he is wrong. I love this concept, and I do think it's silly, but it would actually work. Because if you think about the situations where they look at the crash reports and saw that the miscommunication and not saying things and speaking up is what caused maybe an accident to happen, that if they had this exercise before, things would probably be different. And when he's showing this in his test and he's saying how it works and it loosened up them pilots and the relationships, he's completely losing the congressman at this point. And then he goes, let me speak before the aviation subcommittee. He's like, let's work together to save some lives. And it was just crazy because the congressman like completely just shoos him out like instantly. He's like, okay, this sounds like something cool. And then it's just like, I don't have any questions for you when he asks him. That was the scary part. And then is like, good to see you. And it's so, so awkward and wants him out of his office. So it completely feels like he is not sold at this at all. And I was just like, whoa, because that was a little more shocking to me than I thought it was going to go. And you got to see now, like, okay, how is Nathan going to get out of this? Is he even going to get to be in front of Congress, which I think he will? I think that's the path we want, right? Because he's set this up. There's going to be some kind of change. He's so close, at least, to making, but I want him to get closer than this, obviously, because we got a whole hour left in the finale. So I hope the finale comes out big, because again, this felt like a real teasing type of episode and wasn't the best rehearsal episode to date. It's a little forgettable. It's just not the most meaty. Again, it feels like it's like pieces and that there's scenes that were cut out that are missing, especially probably some stuff in the airport with the kids. And I'm sure stuff we didn't get to see all of with the pilots experimenting with the scripts. So I was disappointed in this episode, I would say. I still think it's good though. So I'm going to give this one a solid 8.1, but definitely my least favorite of the season. I think it really hurt with the runtime too. But I think it's gonna pay off fully in having an hour. When I saw it was an hour next week, I was like, okay, I was relieved because I would have been pissed if it was another half hour because we're already at the end of the season here. So I just want enough time for Nathan to come with like a really good landing here and conclusion to this story. So I think he'll deliver. But it had a lot of interesting stuff to say. But I feel like we knew a lot of stuff already, and that we only really got to see him rehearse with the fake Congress. So I wanted to maybe get a little quicker even to getting a closer, believable area where he will get in front of the real Congress, where I think it kind of just shows it backtrack. So I'm interested to see where this goes. But let me know what you thought down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Hit that sub button so you miss one of my reviews of The Rehearsal. I'm also doing The Handmaid's Tale. I also have the show on Netflix coming out, Sirens, I'm covering, and I do movies and celebrity interviews as well. And I'll see you next time.